So, the right passenger side wheel bearings. I already got the front seal popped off. I got the bearing out. It's this little fella right here. I need to get this cleaned up a little bit, but it's kind of nasty, little that type stuff. But so that's all popped out. I got the big one right here in the back. That guy, a little bit bigger. And the old seal is officially popped out. I'll use that guy to tap. You can kind of see the glare in the background, sorry. Use that guy to tap the new one back in. Tap, tap, tappy. So I just got to get things greased, get the dam built up behind, get the wheel bearings pushed out. Yeah, should be pretty interesting. So I'll just dive into it, and that way I can start using some of this grease. So, put that guy in. Neighbor Kevin let me borrow this cool little tool. Put that on there. Put this on here. Tighten this thing down so it pushes the bearing. And then we just pump it. I'm hoping I've got enough grease to get everything done. I should be able to get both of these wheel bearings done, and that should be good. At some point it's going to start pushing out the grease from inside this thing. Pushes the old grease out, pushes new grease in, and I should have all new stuff to get this thing rocking and rolling. That looks like it should be pretty good here pretty soon. I've been using some of the old grease. It's not bad grease. I use it to build the dam up on the backside. So it gives me a little bit of leftover grease just to kind of play with. Get this in there. Yeah, so I've got plenty of leftover grease to play with. Get that. Build up my dam behind this thing. I got too much crap on my table. Build up the dam. It does take, it takes a good chunk of grease to get this done. Not overdoing it, like I'm not filling the hole, but just kind of filling in the gaps on the backside so there's a grease dam to help seal, and the heat will be there. Ding, ding, ding. Need some music or something. Usually I use my phone for music, but obviously now I'm filming. So maybe somebody can give me some insight on what to do for that. That's some background music so I don't have to aimlessly talk would be amazing. So that's that. Here's this grease. Make sure we have it on the outside as well. On the outside, fill that on. I don't need to have it ridiculously coated because there's a lot that's packed into the middle of this thing, but you can kind of see. There's a good chunk. Most of that's just on top and for pushing out the old, getting the new, but I want to just kind of make sure that the outside of the bearings get some grease on them so when it seals tight. Should be okay. Push that down in there. Clean up my hands a little bit because they are covered in grease. And then what I do is I have the new seal. I take the new seal, actually take a little bit of grease, build this up in here. Can't really see it, sorry, from that angle. But there's a little bit of a lip in here. I just want to make sure that it's got grease on these bearings. Not a lot, but just enough to coat and kind of fill the holes that are not technically supposed to be there. The jets fly over, sorry. Tap this, line that up where the ridges are down. You don't want the ridges to be up, that doesn't do you any good. So the ridges will point down towards the bearing and it's solid. on top. So you can kind of see, this is the old bearing, but there's a lip on the bottom that goes down, and that, the flat side, is your outer side. So I use that, go flat to flat, and just kind of hold it down with my hand and tap, tap, tappy. I'm not trying to get too aggressive, but you do have to give it some love. May have went in the wrong way there. Try to make it as flat as you can sending this thing in here. Maybe if I grease the sides, it'll make it a little bit of love. Sorry guys, this usually would, the first one went pretty quick, so I was hoping the second one would go about the same. And we're started, okay. And we are in. Let's tap it down until it seals up. Should be pretty good. Get that out of there. So that's that. Put a little layer of grease on the outside of that one. Just so it's not dry going on the back side when it seals in. So that's the back one. That's the back wheel bearing. Pretty simple. I can see it. I hope I'm doing things correctly. I don't know what the heck's going on. All sorts of crazy trucks driving around. And the other thing too, I'm trying to be mindful to keep this rotors clean, but I think I'm gonna have to hit them with some brake clean at the end of this. Okay, so now onto the front side. Remember, gotta build that dam on the inside of this thing. I would show you, my hands are filthy, and I just honestly don't want to get my phone or the new stand I got dirty. It's kind of a, I've been told, you don't want to like force grease into this, you just kind of want to build the dam, and then you should be okay. So that should be good. Sorry, it's a little bit short. I hate being tall. So that's that. New bearing. Again, you push it. So I put this down to where the skinny end or the smaller end is in there, and it seats pretty good. Then take this, screw it on. And pump. Till it pushes out that old grease. Looks like it's not too far. Tighten this up a little bit more maybe. I can't really tighten that. Okay, do that. Have some leftover grease in there. Flexi bearing. It's all pretty well packed in there now. You can see it pretty well. So it gives me that. Make sure it's all coated on the inside and out. Use some leftover grease. Touch up the outside. And drop it in. That's that, and then you just have this little, so this is what lines up with the spindle. Try to clean it up a little bit so it's not just gross and nasty. So there's a little groove in the spindle. You can see that little lip right there. There's a kind of little key. I think the best way of putting it, there's a groove for like something like a key or for this to sit into on the spindle, into the spindle. So that, when it slides on, that pushes on, keeps everything in place, and then everything just kind of pushes on, and then there's a castle nut with a cotter pin. I gotta figure out what my torque specs are to push it on there, and push it on. So, pretty straightforward stuff for the most part. For the most part. Anyways, okay, I'll take another video. I'll get moved over to the actual hub. I'll show kind of putting it on. I need to figure out my torque spec and get that sized out, but see you in a second. Alright guys, so we're down here. We've got the spindle. You can kind of see, I don't know if you can see, but it's got that little groove that I was talking about that the ring goes into. That little guy. So we're gonna throw this on here. Get this buttoned up, get the castle nut on. The nice thing about this, there's not really a torque spec because you don't want it to tighten it so tight that your bearing is pushed in and won't spin. So you kind of tighten it. I'll show you what I did, or what I did on the other side, since I've already done this on the other side. So we put this in here, get that little tongue thing lined up. Push through. See, it pushes everything out kind of, so you gotta just, push it all back in, get her seated. And yeah, all right, so that's on. That was pretty simple. Like I said, you just make sure that, like, washer, I guess the best way of putting that, make sure that that's lined up with that, otherwise everything will just push out and you'll have little to no luck doing anything. So, castle nut, there's castle nut, get it put on here, feel spin, hands are all funky, so get that spun on. And then I got my cotter pin too, but I'll get this on here, go grab a rag real quick so I can clean up my hands and do the rest of this stuff. So that's that. Find your cotter hole. The other one, so it comes in from the top side. Mine's right here. You can't really see it, obviously, from your angle, but cotter pin's right there, so I shouldn't have to tighten this very much. It says in the ballpark of 12 pounds of torque, so I mean, I'm just kind of tightening it. I'll spin it a little bit, loosen it up. So you spin it, it goes a decent, loosen it up maybe a little bit. Spin that, and it goes almost a full rotation. So that should be pretty good as long as my stuff lines up. I don't really have it greatly lined up. Right there. That spins pretty good. I don't want it to be, I don't want to be tightenable by hand. This is kind of one of those, play with it till it works. I think I'm just too loose at the moment. See how that lines up? Yeah, that should be good right there. Still spins pretty solidly. There's my cotter pin. Came out of it originally. Get that shoved down in there. Give it a little bit of love. Cotter pin's in. take your screwdriver or your pliers, get it out. A little bit more love, I guess. It'd be nice if I could get that to turn, but I doubt I'm going to get that to do what I need to here. So that'll be that. So now that's everything right there. So now she spins. Take your little hub, put it on there, give her some love taps, and she's on. Whew! Alright, so that's passenger side. Now I'm going to take some brake clean up my rotors, front and back, try to just clean it up so the grease side of things is off, and then I can put my calipers back on. And calipers and wheels, obviously, but then I'm done. This thing's ready to set back on the ground, do some steering. I'm gonna just I want to start it up, use my power steering to kind of steer everything, get it worn in. Yeah, stoked. This thing's ready to go back on the ground here really soon. So I'm gonna get that hammered out, get this thing, get the wheels on, and maybe even go for a drive. Be awesome. All right, thanks guys, appreciate it. Have a great night.